was fine. I also wanted to bring greetings on behalf of Rob Fleming, who's our education critic, who's over on the island, which is even further away. But he sends his regards to you tonight. He wasn't able to make it. I was really hopeful, actually, that there would be some BC Liberal representation today, because I'll share a short story of my experience with inviting Liberals to education events. I invited during the estimates process, which is a process in the budget when you're allowed to ask whatever questions you want of the minister. I took the opportunity to ask some questions of the education minister, Peter Fassbender, and I watched all my colleagues asking questions about specific numbers for their school districts and so on, and he refuted the numbers, and they went back and forth, and it was really frustrating to watch. It was frustrating for them and for him, and so I said, well, what I'll do is I'll just invite the minister to come. He was quite convinced that he had increased education funding, that schools were better than ever, that the outcomes were remarkable, and that everybody was having a great time, and I'll just invite him to come and explain that to parents in my constituency and in Vancouver. So I said, oh, Minister, would you like to come to Vancouver? Is there money in the budget for you to come to Vancouver, make the trek, and do your presentation about numbers to parents and have them ask you questions, because I think we have a disagreement about what's happening in schools. And he said, to my shock and amazement, he said, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. And it's on the record, and you can go and read it in the Hansard. It was the day or the next day after I wrote to him to confirm it, and I got called up to the Ministry of Education office, where a senior bureaucrat sat me down and said, well, David, you know, we're doing the ribbon cutting on the seismic upgrade at Kids High, and the minister will be there, and you're more than welcome to go to that. And we'll make sure you get an invitation, but I'll be darned, clean up my language, I'll be darned if I'm going to put my minister in front of a bunch of angry parents. And so unfortunately, the meeting has not happened yet, although our chair of the school board, Patty Backus, was very excited to have the minister and was more than willing to host. The problem in many ways is this disconnect between the talking points and the numbers and the reality of the classrooms. We had an event in Vancouver Point Grey of all of we invited all the teachers and the parents, supporters of public education to come and talk about what they saw, what their concerns were, and so on. And teacher after teacher, parent after parent, and a couple kids actually got up and talked about what they were seeing in the classrooms. And so many of them said, if you know, to the critics of what we're asking for in class size and composition, if you just come and spend a day in our classroom, you will come out a changed person, because I go home and I cry about the students in my classroom that I am unable to provide the level of support that I know they need to succeed. I'm the advanced education critic for the NDP, and so I'm working on universities and colleges. And one of the issues we're dealing with is a cut to English as a second language training, tuition-free English as a second language training for new British Columbians who are coming here as immigrants. And in one of the presentations I went to from students who are concerned about these cuts or these programs are ending, a man stood up and said, I'm an engineer from Dubai. I came here because I really value the education system. It's an important, it was an incredibly important draw for me to come to British Columbia, to come to Canada, and bring my children and my family here so that they had the opportunities presented by the education system here. And that, combined with Canada and the rule of law, is why I'm here and why I'm so proud to be here and to participate in British Columbia's economy. And it's those two values that he talked about, the rule of law, respect for the rule of law, and that as a lawyer I really value, and also a strong public education system that I really feel are systematically under attack for political advantage right now. And I don't say that lightly. I'll give you some background about why I say that. And some of this you will know, some of you in this room will know by heart because you lived through it. January 2002, Bill 28, legislation that removed the rights of the people in this room to bargain class size and composition, resulted in 1,500 teacher librarians, support, special education teachers, school counselors being laid off. Overturned in 2011 as unconstitutional by the BC Supreme Court. The court says you cannot, this is not an acceptable law, you need to go back. That was a 9-year process to get there. Christy Clark said, absolutely, we need to make sure we address the issues that the court raised, we absolutely will do that. And so they did by passing Bill 22, which the court later called, quote, virtually identical right, to the law that was struck down as unconstitutional. And then again, in January 2014, as you know, the court struck down that law as unconstitutional. And importantly, in the court's findings, and having reviewed a number of cabinet documents, the court said, quote, "The government had a strategy in mind that it would be to its benefit if negotiations failed and if collective bargaining resulted in a strike and impasse." So, which is a one-sentence summary of the finding of the judgment, that the government thought it would be to its political advantage to have kids not be in school. And I do feel that there is a financial consideration about the amount of money that the government is saving having teachers out on strike, that is working against a negotiated settlement to this strike. And that will continue in September if this strike continues. And it also leads the government to be really reluctant. And there's a real problem when you have a government that is disregarding what the courts are saying to it about what the law is, and that is disregarding the primary importance of having kids in school and learning for an idea of fiscal responsibility that can only be described as bizarre, that we're going to save money by having kids not be in school. And as a kid of a teacher, I have a bias, right? I was raised by a teacher, and my mom became a principal as well. I saw her after school marking papers, doing prep work for her classes, making little counting objects and whatever for her primary school kids, spending our family money on supplies for the classroom, and not begrudgingly. I never knew that until much later, and it was never a thing. It was just something that she did to make her classroom awesome and extra fun and extra effective. And I heard that story, but in a different way than it was when I was a kid. At our meeting in the constituency office, I heard teacher after teacher say, there was a survey, and we could maybe repeat it here, where somebody asked, have you spent more than $500 on your classroom supplies in the last 5 years? And all the teachers put up their hands and some laughed. If you spent more than $1,000, if you spent more than $5,000, and people who had their hands up, they'd spent more than $5,000 in the last 5 years on supplies for their classroom. And so when I hear the government say, this is all about greedy teachers and they want money, and that's what this debate is about, it really bothers me. It bothers me that this debate has been made about that the government has been so disrespectful of court decisions and the rule of law, because there's lots of room in the law for them to do what they feel they need to do. And it really upsets me when I have to sit in a classroom in front of a guy from Dubai who came here because he believed that Canada presented a public education system that gave everybody an equal shot, that his kids would have a better shot taking advantage of Canada's famous public education system that he heard about overseas, and that this government is dismantling for political and a twisted notion of fiscal responsibility. So that is why I can say certainly you have my personal support in your efforts to improve classroom conditions for kids that need extra supports, to make our public education system strong, and to make sure that the teachers that we attract and hire and retain are the best possible people for the position, not just those who have to work as teachers because there are no other options for them. So you have my complete support in that. I know you have the support of my colleagues and our official critic, Rob Fleming, and thank you very much for all of your work for kids in British Columbia.